Hello and welcome to another weekly update. Oh, there we go. That's what I meant to do. I hope you're well. It's been a couple of weeks. So we did one last week. There wasn't an awful lot to talk about. We are doing one again this week. There is some stuff to talk about. There's not loads. It's kind of surprising. It's not kind of what I expected, but that's okay. We'll get through it anyway. It's interesting to think about why, but there are some things happening. And so there are some things to talk through. So without further ado, let's kick it off. And the first thing to talk about is Copilot Memory, which is coming to Visual Studio. And we know this because there's a blog about it on the Visual Studio blog by Jesse Houghton. And this is kind of interesting because this speaks to a problem that I've certainly seen where you want to, you're using Copilot with your code, you're doing bits and pieces, and there's a couple of different ways you could do something, and you end up writing it into the system prompt again and again. And what you really want is Copilot to remember some of that stuff. And I'm thinking things like coding standards, or the one for me is when we do commits into Git, the comment, if we're working on a particular feature and it's tied to what we've got in our bug tracking software, we should start the commit with the code. So it makes it much easier to kind of track down changes later. That's the kind of stuff that I always forget. And when I'm generating, because of course I use Copilot to generate the commit message because it's so much easier. And that's the kind of stuff that you always forget and you end up having to put in manually. So being able to tell Copilot about that would be really, really useful. Okay, so this is how this works. It's kind of, I think it's on by default, but it will automatically start to do this. But you can also kind of save it. You can do it in a file called copilot-instructions.md, which can be at the user profile level, or you can have different ones in each repo. Copilot will merge it in. And I've seen this a couple of times show up in Visual Studio. I've not really known how to deal with it. I've seen the most obvious thing actually is when Copilot asked me if I wanted to create one and talk me through creating it, which was interesting, but I didn't really know what it was doing. So this Copilot instructions markdown file is kind of Copilot's memory. So it's kind of a small thing. It's I wouldn't go so far as to call it a memory because of it. It's the plumbing that allows a file that can be user scope level or repo scope level to be loaded in so that you can augment your prompt, the things you're talking to every day. So once you understand that, then it becomes useful in whatever ways make sense for you. I've just thought of another one, which is kind of the shape of your commit messages. Often organizations have a structure to how commit messages should, or even or pull requests should be laid out. So Copilot putting that stuff into the instructions can really help that stuff as well. And obviously you can also use it to influence how your code is generated from Copilot, or how the repo is traversed, and what all these kind of things. You could also put in. I find myself quite a lot explaining to Copilot what the code currently does at like a business logic level and why, because you sort of need to have that context before you can then build on it with new features. So actually putting some of that stuff into the instructions file might be quite helpful as well at a repo level. So I'm going to look at this. This sounds interesting. Yeah, so that's all good. Okay, new thing. So if you do stuff with Copilot Studio and you're what I would call a pro level developer, or a developer that likes to deal in code rather than completely in the UI, you might be interested in this. There's an extension for Visual Studio Code now for Copilot Studio. So so this is exactly what you think it is. It's a way for you to iterate your Copilot Studio projects and work on them from within Visual Studio, much more in a code way rather than a UI way. So you can iterate and see, like here, you've got all these topics, you've got your workflows, your triggers, your agent information. And this is kind of how you can visualize, or how Copilot Studio is laid out behind the scenes, if you like. And if you've never dug into this, and I haven't really done an awful lot with it, but it is kind of interesting to understand how a Copilot Studio solution is put together. So the great thing about all of this, of course, is that it makes it much easier to work straight into Git and GitHub, because it's just code at this point. You can source control it, you can version it, you can build it. Yeah, all the sort of stuff you'd expect. So this is cool. This is, I think, for developer teams taking on Copilot Studio agents. So these might be ones that other people in the business have built as proof of concepts that you now want to take into production and look after. Or it might be that you're extending them out, you're doing your own things, or maybe you just want to build a Visual Studio because, in Copilot Studio, because it's a better environment for your enterprise. So in terms of security and governance, Copilot Studio has a lot of good things around environments and segregation and security and auditability and traceability. So actually it might be easier for you to build your agent out there than in any other way. So yeah, this is all good. Obviously, if you get stuck, you've got GitHub Copilot as well to help you understand what's going on. And yeah, it's a nice way of doing it. I wish I'd had this 6 months ago, honestly, because it might have really helped some of the stuff I was doing with Copilot Studio, but there we go. It's always the way. I'm glad it exists. And so if this is you kicking off a bunch of stuff with Copilot Studio, just be aware that there is there's an extension for Visual Studio Code that might make things more codey if that's what you're after. Okay, briefly, LinkedIn has a new book coming out. It's called Open to Work, which is a great name for a title by anyone who leads LinkedIn. So it's by the CEO of LinkedIn, Ryan Roslansky, and the Chief Economic Opportunity Officer, Anish Raman. And it's available for pre-order. I think it's coming out sometime in March. It's kind of all about how you should change how you work because AI. And I think this is interesting. I'm not sure there's going to be anything like completely earth-shatteringly new in here. I imagine there'll be lots of references to the work trend index to kind of back up some of the information that's been said. But, you've got to take it seriously when the, 2 C-levels from LinkedIn sit down and write a book. I think it's worth taking seriously. And so it's interesting, right? Yeah, definitely. So available for pre-order if you want it. March 31st is when it's out. It's available in all the places where you can get books, or good books anyway. So that's that. I just want to kind of briefly cover that. And then also to let you know that Microsoft are running a series of AI Power Days. So these are 3-day digital experiences. So they're online only. And in their words, they're designed to empower business and leaders to build frontier firms for the agentic AI era. So it's all, I would imagine it's a lot of stuff from Ignite. If you're bang up to date with all the news that's happening in Microsoft and Copilot space, there probably isn't anything new in here for you. But if not, and you can dip in and out, you don't have to like lock in for the full 3 days, but there's 3 full days of content. It looks pretty full on actually. And it all kind of takes you through, I guess, at a businessy level, why you'd want to be a frontier firm, what it means, and then digging into some of the things you can do. And then there's different pitches at different places. So there's stuff from Azure, there's stuff from Foundry, there's stuff from Windows 365, there's stuff from Microsoft 365. There's a whole bunch of stuff. The schedule is all online. You can see it. You have to register for each individual session separately, which I think is actually quite a good idea because it forces you to really think about what you want to do. Looking at these times, I think they're kind of UK and Europe friendly. Just be aware of that. That I think they're more tailored for this side of the world than America. And nothing to stop you registering for them, especially as I imagine you don't have to watch them live as well. So that might be worth looking through and seeing if there's anything in there you want to watch, because you might be able to watch it kind of not necessarily at the time. So that's all good. And then day 3, I think, is a bit more kind of hands-on and buildy, so those might be a bit more live. And then finally, interestingly, there's a data center tour at the end, which I think might be quite interesting. All right, enough from me. Have a great week, whatever it is you're doing. I'll speak to you again next week.